Well, plenty of those stories making the papers today, and sports journalist Paul McCarthy joins us in the studio. Very good morning to you, Paul.
Alex.
And starting off with Arsenal, how headlines change over the last
few
years?
They do, as you said earlier in the show. Cast our mind back to the first day of the season where they were Arsenal absolutely trounced at home by Aston Villa. And then suddenly, it's 10 on the spin now,
yeah,
looking for 11 against West Brom at the weekend. And I'm having a sweepstake on how many times you spot this headline in the newspapers. It's on the back page of The Independent, Wizard of Ozil. If you go onto the front page of The Sun in their teaser panel, Wizard of Ozil. If you go into The Sun on their main spread, it's the Wizard of Ozil. So three for the price of one there. But you can understand why when he was in that kind of imperious form. And there's a piece by Paul Hayward in the Telegraph saying it's the difference that he's made is that not just the way he plays, but it's just having a star name there, a real true A-lister, probably the only A-lister that the Premier League signed in the transfer window, and it's just given that kind of confidence. You know, the Arsenal fans around the press box at the Emirates are some of the harshest critics. They are never, ever satisfied. Well, I spoke to somebody last night. He said, and they all left smiling, happy. So that's a fairly good litmus test of where Arsenal are. But there's a good piece here by Steve Howard in The Sun, which actually just takes the flip of the Ozil sort of factor, if you like. And here, Wilshere, the odd man out. Jack Wilshere on the bench yesterday. While Arsenal were imperious in the first half, he was sat watching it from the dugout. And he came on after 63 minutes for Thomas Rosicky. But Steve Howard is asking here, this can't be good news for England. We've got two huge matches coming up. And they've got an embarrassment of midfield riches at the Emirates. All the players were there. Arteta and Flamini in a holding role. And then, obviously, Ozil there. Rosicky there, Aaron Ramsey, who's having the start to a season that he probably, we knew he had the talent, but obviously the injuries that he's had. And then you look in the sidelines, Cazorla to come back, Walcott to come back, Oxlade-Chamberlain to come back, Abu Dhabi to come back, if he ever does come back, frankly. How does Wilshere fit in? Is it going to be a rotation policy? And if there is a rotation policy, is that good news for England? Because some, I think, incredibly harsh judgments on Jack Wilshere after the game against Ukraine. But Steve Howard raises a very good point. I'm sure Arsene Wenger doesn't worry too much about England. He just worries about what he's doing for Arsenal. Good news again in Europe for English clubs. Chelsea, they've had some dark days recently. But here in the Times this morning, Matt Hughes was over in Bucharest. Double from Ramirez lifts the dark mood for Chelsea. Strange, really, the whole return of Mourinho. Such expectations, and when Chelsea slightly dip, as we saw in the first game against Basel in the Champions League, huge question marks, and that's what you get when you have somebody as high profile and as massively box office as Jose Mourinho is. The expectations on Chelsea are so high, but when they don't meet those high standards, there's an outcry. And I think every game at Stamford Bridge is either going to swing from, champions of the world to crisis, possibly in the space of 90 minutes. But the paper's entirely complimentary about that performance in Bucharest, incredibly comfortable. The downside is that Fernando Torres went off after 11 minutes last night. There will know more today, I guess, on his injury. But still, the rumble or the ramifications from the weekend are still there, given the FA's decision not to charge him with further disciplinary action after scratching or clawing at Jan Vertonghen. And here in the Daily Mail, Graham Poll, they refer to him as the official line, and this is a view echoed by Mark Halsey in The Sun as well. Farcical fudge fails referees, players, fans and football. And I think there'll be some questions asked this morning as to why, when television saw it, the newspaper pictures of here, you can see on the screen there, the actual sort of incident in its just the key to it, why there's no extra charge for the bottom line is that one of the officials, while Mike Dean, the referee, said didn't see anything, couldn't see it, his view was utterly obscured, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That happens. One of his assistants saw some of it and saw that is him, Fernando Torres, raise his hand, but couldn't see, was completely blindsided by what actually he was doing when he raised his hands. Now, there is the ability to refer that to a panel, but only in exceptional circumstances. And the FA felt and feared that if they referred it to having one of their officials actually seen it, would have left them wide open to a legal challenge from Chelsea, which is why they've taken the decision.
I noticed in that article, Graham Poll says, though, if it was Luis Suarez, do we think it would have been the same outcome? Well,
because people are making the comparison with the biting incident against Branislav Ivanovic last season. I don't know is the answer. It's kind of a hypothetical answer. But I think, yes, there is a possibility, given the track record of Luis Suarez, I admit. But the last season, that was perceived as to be an absolute, and you couldn't argue otherwise, an exceptional circumstance. The FA Disciplinary Commission do not believe that this was an exceptional circumstance. Still on the Champions League and the speculation, we talked about the speculation and the scrutiny of Jose Mourinho and Chelsea. You know, multiply that by 1,000 times for David Moyes, and you know this is, I can't remember whenever a Manchester United manager, I can't remember another Manchester United has ever had this kind of treatment that you get on the front page here of the Mirror Football pullout. Tinker Man U, and there's a picture of David Moyes in stark close-up. Moyes' team accused of unsettling team with too many changes, and that's from Mircea Lucescu, the manager of tonight's opponents, Shakhtar Donetsk, who said they've studied Manchester United and they're making changes which unsettles the sort of balance, the equilibrium of the team, and you know, Moyes doesn't know the best team. To have this kind of, understandably, after 3 defeats in the Premier League, you know that a manager is going to come under scrutiny. But to have this kind of scrutiny is amazing.
Paul, can you do the next story in 10 seconds?
Yes.
We're running out of time.
Pep Guardiola is getting that kind of scrutiny, and he's won 5 games and drawn one in the Bundesliga. Guardiola puts his stamp on Stari Bayern. They're at Manchester City tonight, but that doesn't please Matthias Sammer and Franz Beckenbauer, who've been incredibly critical. So you can virtually have a perfect record, and if you're a new manager, you still come under that kind of scrutiny.
As I said yesterday,
Great.
That's football.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.